What's going on, everyone? CryptoVatsik here with another technical analysis video for you. Today I'm going to be covering Filecoin for you. As always, nothing of what you're about to see is considered financial advice and they're just my opinions. If you do enjoy these videos, I would really appreciate it if you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for future updates. Okay, let's get into the chart, you guys. I last posted this chart on Filecoin 3 months ago, so everything you see on the chart is from that prior video. And essentially, I had talked about a high time frame range that we were trading within, with the range high being up here and the range low being down here. And I had said after we put in these two equal lows, I was looking for that higher low. Once we got that higher low confirmed, it marked our bear market bottom. So the next thing we needed to denote was high time frame resistance and our range. The range was pretty simple because we had our highs from over here marking our range high. And then of course, as I said, we had our lows denoted down here. So from that point, we got our range high, our range low, and more importantly, our equilibrium. Now, something I do like to note within ranges as well is the quarter equilibriums. So we got the lower 50th percentile quarter EQ here in the green dashed line, and then the same thing up here in our upper 50th percentile of our range, our quarter range 2 up here in the red dashed line. And in that prior video, I wanted to see a reclaim of our EQ, which we ended up getting right here in late January this year. And you'll notice that we put it in a low right on that equilibrium. Yes, we did deviate a little bit below it, but it was quickly reclaimed, and then we were trading well above it with candle closes on the high time frame above the EQ. So it's exactly what you want to see for strength, and especially when you're looking for a bottom to be formed. So at the time of that video, I had talked about a push up to the range high, and I had marked out some pretty clear triggers for that push up. One was to maintain that equilibrium, as I said, but then two was to reclaim our red dashed line Q2 up here. And you'll notice that price swiftly squeezed up to the prior high with only a very brief back test on that level. So price doesn't always wait for you or your criteria, and it doesn't always look something like this, which might give you some more opportunity to enter into a position. Especially in a bull market, you might get very short pullbacks and then it's continuation. And that is in fact what we got on this price action here back in late February. We did in fact push up to the range high and actually deviated outside the range high on the upside. And when I came back to this, I had wondered why I had marked out that range high and why we got this deviation. It's okay to be a little bit off and good to be flexible, but I don't like seeing this when I mark out especially a zone and it goes well above that zone. So in hindsight, I came back and I looked at where I marked out that range high, and it was ultimately from this cluster of consolidation, this bearish consolidation before we dumped. And what I had noticed actually was that we had this massive wick to the upside here. So there was definitely liquidity still sitting up there that got taken out. So it's fine. We work with the price action that's in front of us. And at the time of that video, I did say that we were range bound technically. And to me, this price action just says that we are still range bound because we are trading back inside of the range as we failed to break out. However, there's some really critical pieces to note here that still are very bullish for the longer term. And the main one is that we've now broken a fresh higher high. Okay, we've broken this high over here, and we've actually technically broken this high as well. So in 2024, we have put in a new fresh high, and this is on the macro scale. So what that means is that my theory that we do not come back down and test this range low anymore is further validated. I did say that it's possible we see Q1 again. At this point, I'm leaning towards not seeing that play out, but never say never. But the key thing that I'm really looking at closely now at this point is back to that equilibrium, okay? You'll notice when we put in our bottom on this correction that we had back here in late January, we had marked out that bottom, okay? And it sits right on that equilibrium. And you'll notice that price has come back and revisited it with much more demand this time in comparison to the last time we were at that level. Large, skinny wick to the downside here. Clearly price trying to hold some form of demand here. So this gives lots of flexibility because there's still quite a bit of room between current price and our EQ. So I would be perfectly fine to see us to continue consolidating, and perhaps we come down and we fill in a bit more of this liquidity, but I would expect there to be a local bottom there in the shorter term. And from that point on, we'll have to continuously evaluate, but perhaps we come back up to this origin of breakdown here for a bit more of a correction until we ultimately push again to the upside. So time will tell. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First things first is I want to see us reclaim our Q2 region here, which is our red dashed line again, as we are now pinched between that resistance, clearly as you can see, and pinched between our EQ as support. So if you'd like, you can even go and mark out a new range on the shorter time frame here that we are clearly range bound. We do have quite the inefficient balance and price action here, okay, on this big red dump candle. Obviously the market took a turn. This was not unique to Filecoin. We all saw it on a lot of altcoins. So there's definitely a void in there that I could see us taking up, and then as I said, getting a bit more more of a correction before taking the range high again. My ultimate invalidation is a loss of our equilibrium here. So this is our macro range. If we lose that level, then as I said, I think it's down to Q1, but that's a pretty obvious prediction. So we just need to mark our invalidation. And for me, it's the equilibrium here, which sits at about 480. And it's quite normal to see this price action. I mean, if you're getting a little bit deflated or feeling, you know, that this is never going to take off, we've definitely seen it before. Let's go to the weekly. Okay, actually we'll switch to the daily again. And what I'm talking about is where you get this push, you break all the bear market lower highs after lower highs, as you can see denoted by this diagonal, which looks a little bit different on the non-log chart right now. We'll just head back to the log chart so you can see clearly we do have a wedge forming here. We really ultimately tried to break out of that wedge with all this price action here, but we fell short. We had some distribution and we dumped back down to demand. It's perfectly fine, you guys. It's perfectly healthy. This is normal reactions or price action coming right out of a bear market. And if I'm being honest, we are still coming right out of a bear market. So let's look at another example where we've seen this before. Okay, if we come back here, arguably this is a mini bear market that we saw in Filecoin, okay, throughout 2020, or apologies, into 2021. Okay, so we had lower high, lower high, lower high, equal high, lower high. Ultimately, you know, that bear market ceiling that I talk about a lot, not able to break out of it. And finally, we get this massive short squeeze out. We break all these highs. We break the bear market ceiling. And then you think we're consolidating and we're just going to push up again, consolidate more, push up again. And in a perfect world, that's what we would see. Potentially, that's what we would have saw in 2017. If you've been here a while, you might be looking for that, but it's a new market. It's a more mature market. Price action is going to look different over time. But my point here is that after we had that major breakout, it wasn't just up. Even though we had this nice ascending channel here, we ended up breaking to the downside and we really chopped around for quite a while. I mean, we're talking about weeks in here before we could eventually really recover and put in a healthy bullish structure until we eventually did get that next leg up. And this is the tough part. This price action is the real tough part for traders. It mentally challenges you, especially if you weren't accumulating down here in the lows and you start, you know, perhaps dollar cost averaging on these dips on the way up. And then next thing you know, your average entry is sitting right around here somewhere. And then we dump all the way down to basically your break even. I mean, this was from the high here, this was a near 40% plus dip. So all I'm saying is that things take time, and it really takes time for especially altcoins to get their strength back, especially right out of a bear market. So, you know, in this case, we have broken these lower highs. We've tested high time frame resistance. We've still got a healthy structure. So the tough part now is to be mentally strong. Don't make stupid choices and be patient. And ultimately, if you're looking long term on Filecoin, perhaps dollar cost average, whatever your strategy is. If you're looking to trade in the shorter term, I've given you my criteria. I want to see the equilibrium hold. Otherwise, I do think we're back down to the quarter range 1. But so long as that EQ holds, then we can attack quarter range 2 and ultimately the range high again, which just puts more pressure on this range high until it eventually breaks. And then we swing all the way up to this prior area of consolidation, this cluster back here in yellow, okay, which is just the natural next area to look at for a target. Above that, you know, and so on and so on. We can talk later about it once we get to that point. But what I want to see is more pressure to be put on this range high. And just for some added confluence, we do have this diagonal again. As I said, I want to see a breakout and hold of the upside of that diagonal. Okay, so you'll notice that we actually got a massive fake out here and we're just back inside of this diagonal that's coming to its apex here. So this is a massive macro range and diagonal that we're working with. So these plays are going to take time to play out. I mean, price could in theory do this actually for months and still be technically range bound, but not bearish. So long as we hold that equilibrium, you know, we're just then putting more pressure on that upper diagonal band here until a breakout. And then it could happen over here. I mean, who knows, right? I'm not going to put a time prediction on this. I just look at price action structure. But either way, in my previous video, I was looking for a push up to the range high. We got it. If you're interested in watching that video again or watching it for the first time, I'll post a link up here right now. But at this point, you guys, I am looking for a hold of the equilibrium and worst case, a hold of Q1 if things get really sour. But that doesn't mean I'm just jumping ship, you know, unless something fundamentally has gone wrong with this project. You know, ultimately I would see it as another higher low in comparison to our previous low or bottom back here, okay? But thinking optimistically, holding that equilibrium, reclaiming Q2, pushing the range high, and then we can start to look to the upside. Thank you guys for joining. I really do appreciate it. If you took something away from this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for future updates. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Catch you soon.
Bitcoin.